Entertaining, informative, and educational. Inspiring content that makes a difference.
This is the Maximus Troy Publications Broadcasting Network.
Join the Academy. The Breeders' Academy proudly presents Bred to Perfection with Kenny Troiano, a show for serious breeders.
Whether you are looking to create a new strain or simply improve an old one, you have come to the right place.
Daddy, I want more chickens.
Oh, boy.
Now, here's your host, Kenny Troiano.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Bred to Perfection. My name is Kenny Troiano, and this, my friends, is the podcast devoted to helping you become a better breeder and taking your strain to the next level. That's right, my friends. It doesn't matter if you are brand new to breeding or you've been breeding for many years. There is something all of us can do to improve our fowl for future generations.
I'm at my wit's end. I've hit the dead zone, Lassie. I ruined me chickens for the last time. Quick, Bertie, get the number for the Breeders' Academy.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Bred to Perfection. I'm Kenny Troiano, founder of the Breeders' Academy, and I'm here with Nancy, my wife, and Frank Bradley, my co-host. What's going on, you guys?
Cold. Check us out.
Oh my God.
It's so funny. When he came on, I saw him at the bottom of the screen, and I saw the smoke coming out of his mouth, and he wasn't smoking.
And it was 57 degrees today, too. Felt really good out while the sun was out, but when the sun goes down, man, it gets cold fast.
Don't you have a heater in there?
Oh, yeah, but it's got to be on to get it to work.
Well,
I didn't have it on.
on.
It's on, wide open now.
Oh, okay.
Today we're going to be talking about the mistakes that most breeders make. And it's so funny because I was waiting for Nancy to come out for an appointment, and I was sitting in the parking lot, and I was just typing these things in just off the top of my head. And I figured I'd come up with maybe a dozen really good ones. I don't know, Frank, did you see the list? It's huge. So I told Frank, anything in red we're going to save for the back end with the members. You can see they're really close to the Founders Program or attached to it. So we're going to cover those kind of questions.
Some of those made sweat beat up on my forehead because I thought she was going to discuss them in the front end. And I was like, I think Kenny got totally mistaken or confused or something if he's got these on the front end.
Well, you saw I colored them red, right?
Yeah.
But that's what we're going to talk about in the front end. And then on the back end, we're just going to carry on with the rest of them. The other day, Tani and I were driving down to the wild animal park to do our walk. And we're just driving down the road. Tani goes to me because she's learning how to drive. And she's asking me a lot of questions, and I'm quizzing her as we go. And she goes, Dad, what's this line going down the road? I go, looks like oil. Wow, looks like a lot of oil. I go, I don't know how anybody's dropping that much oil and not having a problem. All of a sudden, you see the oil just go to the right and off to the curb. And you see this huge puddle, and we're like, okay, I guess that's where he realized he had a problem, you know? It was so funny to watch the street go down the road, and then all of a sudden you can see him pull over, and there's this big old puddle on the side of the road. So I don't know what happened or what he hit, but he pretty much lost all the oil in his car.
We done that one time going to West Virginia. West Virginia is probably about 45 minutes, and we was going to Huntington. That's about an hour and a half. And I was fixing up an older truck, and I'd had the radiator out of it, and I'd had the transmission cooler lines undone. And anybody that's ever worked on those knows those little bitty clips that hold them in, man, they're a pain to get in right. We passed this guy, the speed limit, I think 65 or 70 there on that interstate. And I just passed him, and he was reading the newspaper while he was driving. I kid you not. As soon as I passed him, I looked up in my rearview mirror, and I couldn't see nothing but smoke. And I pulled off the side of the road, and when I pulled off the side of the road, he passes us, and he had on a real light blue shirt, and it had turned completely sprinkled red. You could see the oil all over his newspaper, covered his car. He pulled off in front of us. It was the awfulest mess there ever was. I apologize. I didn't know what else to do, but Amanda's all the time complaining because I keep oil, tools, that sort of thing in the vehicle. So it was a quick fix. Add some oil to it on our way, but that guy was not happy in the least.
Wow.
You don't pull over in California and help out people. You
don't see that too often.
Get carjacked.
Yeah, you don't see that very often. You know that road that winds down to the wild animal park from our house?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm one of the slowest people on the road just because I drive what I think is safe. So I could go as fast as I want down that road, and it wouldn't be fast enough for these guys. They'd still be on my butt, right? So I just say, screw it. I'm just going to go what I think is safe, and I won't pull over because I know how bad it can get. I know some people will pull over. They'll try to come real close to you and try to intimidate you, so I don't pull over. But talking about cars, I have a Tundra. It was one of the first four-door Tundras they ever made. Matter of fact, it was the first one that ever came to San Diego County. When we were looking for a truck, they just happened to have it. They told me it was the first one. There's no other dealers that have it. They only had the one. So that thing turned 20 this year. And I've kept it up. I've done a good job of maintaining it. But this year I put a whole bunch of money and time into it. And now we got it running like brand new. I can't believe how well it drives. It's so fun to drive now because it's like brand new. So I was telling Nancy, everybody I took the truck to said the engine in it is known as the 1,000,000-mile engine. It takes a lot to actually beat these things down. They just last forever. And I was telling Nancy, if they're that good, and I love this truck, I could see myself keeping it forever. Let's get another one. Let's get a second one, and we'll fix it up, maintain it, and it'll be a good second car. So we found one, and we went and looked at it, and you looked at the log. It looked like he kept everything up. He did all the maintenance. I was like, wow, this thing is kept up really nice. But when I went down there and looked it over and drove it, it didn't drive like mine. It didn't feel like mine. And I told Nancy, maybe we need to rethink this. Yeah, so we ended up not getting that truck. And for the last 2 days, we've been rethinking our automobile situation, what we're going to do. But I was bummed because I was so excited to get another Tundra, and I was going to let Tawny drive it. But it didn't feel right. It just didn't feel like the same truck at all.
That's like I told Kenny. I said, if you pay, say, $9,000 for a used vehicle and you get it, you got to make sure it's mint, it's in the condition of your head, because the engine goes down, transmission goes down, the rear end goes out, something in the drivetrain, then you're in way over your head. But to go back, you was talking about those tailgaters. Best way in the world to get rid of a tailgater is if they get too close to your bumper, just clean your window a lot. Just hold down on that washer, they back off. Especially if they're on a motorcycle. But at nighttime, it flips them out. That starts hitting. They think, oh, it's oil. It always backs them off.
You know what I did? It works pretty good. Nancy bought me a license plate frame, and it says, the closer you get, the slower I go. And I do. It takes them a few minutes to read it, and all of a sudden they're right on my butt, and then all of a sudden you can see that they back off. They back way off. I speed up, and they stay away from me. I can't believe how good that works.
If somebody's riding her bumper that way, she'll slow down about another 10 miles an hour, and they back off. She speeds up. They get back on her again. She'll slow back down about 10 miles an hour on the speed limit. So it does work.
My license plate tells them exactly what I'm doing. They just know I'm not messing around. They back off, and it works really good. Okay, so let's get on with the show. Make sure you guys join the newsletter, which is our Breeders Bulletin. Go to www.breedersacademy.com. There you're going to get free tips, free ebooks. Like I said, just go to www.breedersacademy.com. Just so you know, the Breeders Academy is open for new enrollment. So this is a good time to join. Not sure how long I'm going to keep the doors open. Maybe for a little bit longer. I used to close it and then open it like 2 or 3 times a year. I still may go back to doing that. So make sure you check that out. So I think that's about it.
I want to address something really quick. Rob here says he's going to watch most of this tomorrow, but he'll be curious to see if he learns anything. And then I wrote him back, letting him know that I'm not sure if he's a member or not, because I don't know all the members' names inside the Breeders Academy. But I wrote, we were on over 2 hours inside the Breeders Academy last week. We didn't get off, I think, East Coast. It was after 1 o'clock. We talk about a lot of great information in the back end. We have no holds bar inside the Breeders Academy for the Breeders Academy members that we do not talk about on the show for the public. Just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, this is a discussion. On the front end, we just do discussions. Now, on the back end, it's no horse bars. Like Nancy said, any question that they have, we answer. And a lot of them is already familiar with the Founders Program and what's inside the website. We have some really good conversations on that back end.
Easier on the back end because, like you said, we don't have to hold back, and we're really careful. Like right here on my outline, I colored some of them red. Some of them we're not going to talk about on the front end.
If they only knew how hard it was for us three to do this and still have something to talk about breeding without actually going into the depths, it can get tough sometimes. That's the reason you hear a lot of stop. We have to think before we approach it, come up with the answer on it, because a lot of stuff can be given out very easily that way.
We actually are getting better. So what I normally do is, like this one especially, because the front end is going to be very relatable to the back end, is that I take them, I clean them up, I take all the promotional stuff out. What I'm talking about right now will come out. And then I put the front end with the back end, edit it, put some banners in to help illustrate a little more. And then the members get a different version, a more cleaned up version. And I'm trying to talk and Nancy's laughing.
The comment, David.
Oh,
David
what did he say?
If you ain't learning nothing on the back end, you need to clean out your ears. I couldn't have said it better myself. Perfectly said, David.
Yeah, the front end is more of a discussion. What we get in is what we get in. We're never worried about trying to get a whole bunch in, but the back end is the fun part. We're more driven to really get into the material.
For somebody who might be listening to our podcast for the first time, let's explain what we're talking about, the back end.
Okay, the front end is what we're looking at right now. The back end is actually on the Breeders' Academy. So what will happen is we'll do our thing for about an hour here. Right about an hour, we jump out. We go into the Breeders' Academy. All our members join us there. And there they can ask whatever questions they want about the website, about breeding, about the Founders Program. And we just tackle the topic. Sometimes we cover a really good topic. Sometimes we actually do a master's class video. And they can ask whatever questions they want. You're going to get more information on the website.
It's what it is. It's a breeder's roundtable.
Yeah, we just renamed it, didn't we?
Yeah.
I actually like that
I
name.
kept forgetting what the name was. I always want to say VIP room, but I know we've changed the name. We'll be right back after word from our sponsor. This show was brought to you by the Breeders' Academy, where we will help you to increase your knowledge of breeding, advance your skills as a breeder, and help you to improve the quality and performance of your fowl. As a member, we'll provide you with the roadmap that you will need to create a true family or strain. I urge you to check it out. You've got nothing to lose, and you can cancel at any time. You also have a 30-day money-back guarantee. Simply go to www.breedersacademy.com to sign up.
The Breeders' Academy will not only change the way you think about breeding, but improve the way you breed your fowl.
I hope to see you there. So let's get started.
Yeah, so you guys want to get going? For you guys in the chat room, what do you think would be the biggest mistake breeders make? I actually have them separated into breeding techniques, breeding programs, breeding methods, mating practices, selection and culling. That's a big one. Genetics, evolutionary biology, farm management, healthcare and disease prevention, and feeding and nutrition. I couldn't believe I came up with this many. The first one, and Frank and I were talking about it in the back end, was breeding the pullets. What do you think, Frank? To me, it's always been the biggest mistake, but I've seen breeders doing it for so many years.
Myself, Kenny, I think the mistake is basically they don't really think of it. I think that they just don't think it out before they do it. Now, once they hear that and the reasons for it, yeah, they've got a point there. But I think that's the biggest part of it. They just never really thought about it.
I think they do it because they think the pullet always looks better than the hen. It's fresher, it's younger, it's stronger. And I think they have it backwards. First of all, you're dealing with smaller eggs. So a lot of times small eggs produce small chickens. You're dealing with a hen hasn't proven her ability to survive her environment, to withstand the diseases. She hasn't developed properly or fully. Mentally and physically, she's not what she's going to eventually be. Not only that, they're not great mothers a lot of times. Sometimes you'll get away with it and they'll hatch the chicks, no problem. But I've seen pullets many times walk off the nest, kill the baby chicks. They wouldn't stay the full term of the incubation period, or they would hatch the chicks and then walk away from them and leave them. And then you use them a year later when they're more mature and they're a completely different bird. And then the physiology of the bird changes so much from 6 months to a year, from a year to 2 years. What you saw as a pullet could be completely different when they're a hen. I actually think using a pullet for breeding is a huge risk.
Yeah. Even their offspring is not going to be sufficient to what they would be as being bred as a mature hen. The eggs are small. The chicks are small. The smaller the chick, if you've got other chicks in there with them, they're going to have a hard time at the feeder getting the nourishment that they need. They're going to be pushed away, pushed to the back. There's a lot of concepts that can go with that. But I think the biggest part of it is patience. They're too eager to breed them and see what happens. And that's one mistake in by itself, and not having the patience as a breeder.
Yeah, I think patience is a big one. I just
Let's
want to
talk
say
about-
something because I think this is important, because there's a misconception about certain breeds and certain varieties, certain strains, that they think they're so great that they think they can improve other breeds, other strains. And this was a comment this person made multiple times, that he felt that his Albanese can fix anything. And we jumped on it a little bit and we teased him along the way, and it has become an inside joke. But the acyl, the idea of breeding acyl to improve a strain is very real to a lot of people. They actually think that they can get an acyl. Most of the time, it's not even a true acyl they're using. It has acyl blood in them, but they think it's actually going to improve their birds, improve the performance, improve assets of the bird. And they don't realize what they're doing is recombinating the genes, changing the breed forever. It doesn't produce the results they think it is. The results they are getting is hybrid vigor. You're not able to get it by infusing new blood or adding new blood or crossing birds, because the traits they're looking for are actually polygenic traits, which take many generations to not only get, but to improve and intensify. But bred to the wrong bird, it could actually go away. So this idea, they try to say, okay, I'm going to breed the acyl in, and then I'm going to breed it out a little at a time till I get to 1/16th. And they think that 1/16th acyl has a 1/16th influence that they think is actually making a difference on the strain, which it doesn't really work that way.
What I hear is the same old thing, is it's hard for the American birds to live here, so we put acyl in them to make them more a healthy bird. But there you go back to the same concept. If you know something about breeding and selection, you can take birds that's sick and actually get them out of that hunt. Yeah, it takes a little time to do it, but you don't have to infuse blood to have healthy birds. And if you've got one sick strain bird, usually it doesn't matter what you put in it. If you're not selecting right, they're going to continue to be sick.
Frank, we go back to what we were talking about a second ago. They think it improves the health and it makes a bird more disease resistant. Again, that's a polygenic trait. They're not going to get that from one infusion. And you can see in their birds when they add the acyl in it, no matter how many times they try to bring it out, it still has that acyl influence in it. I just think it's ruining the American game breed.
Same thing with the Peruvian.
Yep, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one now. Yeah.
Georgia's got it figured out, though. Rather than the Albany, it's the Hatch.
It used to be. It never was Albany. It was only one person actually saying that. We were just teasing them. But it used to be Hatch. They used to think that.
The thing is, though, Kenny, this is the way people think about it. One man's Albany is another man's junk, okay? As long as it's called Albany, they're great. As long as it's called Hatch, they're all the same. What do you think about making this cross with a Kelso and a Hatch? Oh, they're great. You'll love them that way. Well, some Hatch are good, some are mediocre, and some are just flat out junk. That's just how it is. The name doesn't make the bird what it is.
You know, the one thing that's not on this list is a name game. How did I miss that?
That's the reason I threw that
Really?
in there.
No, I did put it on here. But Frank's exactly right. Any bird that was on Hatch's yard, they took a bird off, no matter what was in it or what they bred to it, how they crossed it, it was named Hatch right away. I stole that from Frank. And if I went to 10 different farms, and if they had hatches, they would all look different.
Yeah.
The hatch doesn't mean anything, never did.
If somebody's breeding that way, they're going to have 5 siblings, and all those 5 siblings is probably going to look differently. Or if they've got 20, 3 or 4 of them is going to look alike and be dark, light, mid-red, different colored legs, some with yellow toes, some with green legs, some with black legs. Yeah, that's usually what you see.
Yeah, because they're mongrels anyways. And they add new blood. The people they got them added new blood. It just never ends. George, this is a good one. I have it on my list, but I really like the way you worded that. Owning more fowl than you can manage and afford. Because I always tell people, hatch as many chicks as you can manage afford so you have a better selection. More birds to choose from, you're going to get a better selection. It's easier to select the standouts. And Dr. Gallardo, I talk to him all the time. He says one of the biggest problems people have is they have more birds than they can manage. And because of that, they've got more disease, they got more problems. More birds isn't always best. You know?
Kenny, when we're telling people to hatch as many as they can afford and care for, we're meaning really in the back end, you keep the birds that you pick out and then the rest you cull, you're doing away with. You're not keeping all those other birds. If you hatch 100 birds out and you only select 5, then those other birds should be culled or dealt with.
And that's one of my things on the list is they don't cull hard enough. I could go on almost anybody's yard, even these big name breeders, and I'll bet you anything, if you let me loose, I could probably cull 50%, maybe 3/4 of the birds.
Yeah, but Kenny, your culling is somebody else's dollars, though.
Yeah.
There's the difference between them. The yin and yang, I guess you could say.
This goes along with not hatching too many, not having the space for the proper care.
Yeah, overcrowding in many ways. Overcrowding the hens in a pen or overcrowding the baby chicks, overcrowding the quail size stuff, just having a yard that's not big enough to handle the birds that you're raising. Yeah.
Not understanding how to breed and maintain a strain.
That's huge.
Yeah. Most of them are relying on best of the best. We've talked a lot about that recently. We did a whole show on that in the back end. And if they're not doing best of the best, they're using the trio method. It resembles some line breeding. They're using birds aren't ready to be line bred, so they're not getting the results they need. And then they take them in 2 different directions with all the genetic diversity that they have, never really cleaning them up, and then they bring them back thinking that they did something. We look at all the birds that are available today, and a lot are like mongrels or crosses or hybrids. They got so much genetic diversity in them. And it's really hard for a lot of us to get really good birds to start with, even for one breeder. And so we end up getting the best birds we can, which have all their issues. And then if we're lucky, we can maybe get a really good bird, like a cock from one breeder. And if we're lucky, we get a hen from another breeder. And then we try to move from there. But the Founders Program was created to create strain from birds like that.
Yeah. Or they get a pair and they hatch out a few chicks, and the very first breeding, they're off to line breeding. And they don't know why. They think they're maintaining a fowl by line breeding. That's 90% of the people that I have come in contact here that started a conversation with me on breeding. I ask them, how is your breeding program? What does it consist of? And they just say, hey, I line breed them. I get a pair trio, I line breed everything. And that's how I maintain them.
But the problem is they don't really know what line breeding is. Okay.
No, well, if they did, they wouldn't be doing it. Line breeding's great if you use it right, but they don't even understand what they're doing when they're line bred. They think they're maintaining a family by doing so. They don't even know the correct purpose of line breeding, really.
I was listening to another show recently, and they were talking about line breeding. They were saying, yeah, I line breed. I take the father to his daughter. That's as far as they went. To them, that was line breeding. That's not line breeding. That's back crossing. Completely different. They look very similar, have some of the same functions, I guess you could say, but the purpose is completely different, and the results you're going to get are completely different. They're used for different reasons. Yeah, a lot of people get line breeding confused with back crossing and back crossing confused with line breeding.
How about not knowing the defects and how to select your seed fowl?
Okay, so not knowing the defects. What do we have, Frank? We talk about all the time. We have 88 or more defects on the Breeders' Academy. We list them. We talk about what the defects are, how to recognize them, how to eliminate them, how to improve the family, and how to fix those defects. So we really go into that. So defects is a big one. It goes back to what we say all the time. In order to select your bird, you have to understand the breed. You have to understand what represents a breed. You have to understand the form and function and the beauty of the breed. So you figure out what the type and the conformation is, the overall structure, the finer points of the breed, and then you got color or plumage. So understanding the breed will help you select them. And that's the problem. You look on any of these social media sites and you can see it. These guys just don't know what makes up the breed, what they're supposed to look like, the overall form and function of the bird.
A lot of them, if you set them down, explain just how you explained that, it would soak in. There's people out there right now saying, oh, that's a good idea. But mainly, they'll hatch off a clutch. And I'm saying a clutch anywhere from, let's say, 6 to 10 chicks. And time it's over with, time they're brought up, they may lose a few of those. And then they get down to 3 or 4 birds. And that's what they're breeding. They're not really selecting points that they should be selecting for. They're just breeding pretty much what they raise.
Yeah, but they have squirrel tail, they have flat back, they have backs that don't slope, they have poor carriage, poor conformation, they don't have the right type, they don't represent their breed. And that just shows me they don't understand what represents a breed. If you don't understand that, how are you going to select your seed fowl? And one of the things people do when they go into the Breeders' Academy, what we encourage is we have some start here pages, and one of them is conformation of body. Some people say, I'll join after I get my birds. No, join now so that we can show you what to look for. When you're going to get your seafowl, what they should look like, what they should have, the right type, what's the right conformation, what's the right carriage, what represents their breed. So when you're going on these farms, you know what to look for. You're not being what we call yard blind by seeing such beautiful plumage and color that you totally miss the conformation. They don't represent their breed as far as type. So I always say, yeah, join first, learn what it takes to select the birds, then you can go and find the birds. If you already have the birds, then I can show you how to improve them from there.
Pretty much you touched on the problem, Kenny,
What's that?
With the pictures that they put on Facebook. Me and you and Nancy would never put a picture on Facebook with a bird showing defect, okay?
No.
That shows right there when they show him a squirrel tail, rye tail, when they're showing the bird, his legs look like they're coming out of his crop on the front. That shows you right there they don't understand the defects and the way the bird's supposed to be built and the way it should look. Actually, they're taking pictures of that because they're proud of that bird. And they don't know the difference, because if they truly knew that was a defect, they wouldn't be posting on social media, I don't think.
There's some information going around that is confusing people, which is mixing up station. They're neglecting conformation. They don't understand the type. So there's some banners. Frank sent me one the other day. I didn't put it on here. I was like, oh, not another one of these.
It's worse than the other one.
Yeah, it is actually.
Yeah, it's way out there. Whoever come up with that really did not understand it whatsoever. And I'm not being mean about that. It's just the truth. In all my years, Kenny, of having birds, I've never had birds with leg placement the way they show in that chart.
Yep.
It's impossible to have. If it's deformed or mutation, yes, but birds are not built that way. The carriage or the station is not built that way.
Yeah, I've had them and I've seen them, and I've worked with people where they have birds that have low station. Some have medium, some have high. But as long as the carriage is right and the conformation's right, and I so badly want to put banners up, but I don't want to do it on the front end. This makes it hard to talk about it, actually. But because I have the banners I use for my members.
And shelve it for the back end.
Okay.
And move on.
I can see Nancy wants to get going.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Justin got something here. Too many families of fowl.
Amen. Amen. And that's something I used to be bad at.
Yeah.
Kenny can tell you, I used to have a crap load of them. And I've still got too many. I've got 4 strains, and that's way too many.
I did too. There was a time I had 15 or 16 different strains out here because I was trying to collect them all. I thought that was a good thing to do. And Tony and a number of my other mentors came over here and says, you got to downsize. You need to work with the ones that you can actually progress. They really went after me on that. And I held on for a while. And it wasn't until I got rid of most of them and I got down to 2 or 3 and I started seeing progress. And then I got rid of 2 more, got down to my Maximus line, and having more pens to work with, more brood fowl to get more chicks on the ground, improved my selection, and the improvement was night and day compared to what I was making. You're not going to make improvement when you have, and I see this all the time, some of these farms, they say they have a strain, but all they really have is a cock and hen. And that cock and hen created all the crosses on their yard, okay? And what are you going to produce if you're lucky? Maybe 2 clutches if you're lucky. That's not very many chicks. And so I was able to really utilize my pens, produce more chicks, have better selection, and the improvement was like night and day.
Just with one strain, you've got to have so many pens to maintain them. But usually what I would do with more than one strain, where I've got 4, I breed 2 this year, and then I breed the 2 the next. While one's maturing, I'm starting on the other one. So it works out that way, but I've done it for many years. So somebody just going into it, that's the worst mistake you could ever make, is having too many. If you're just starting, start out with one, get good with the one where you can capably handle another. But just starting out, I would keep it as one until I was comfortable enough to have another, if they even ever got another.
Now, he's saying a big mistake, making excuses why to hold on to something instead of accepting the facts. Frank, that usually goes back to the name game. It could be the worst bird on the yard, but it has a name, and they think it's the only one left. They're going to hold on to it, even though it's a bad bird.
It puts sentimental value to it because of that name. You take that name off of it, they wouldn't keep that bird on their place for a moment.
I don't think you had this one on your list.
No, not really.
It wasn't on the list, but we've talked about this many of times, and I'm guilty of this. I have been guilty in the past, but now if I don't have a use for something, the only thing that I will cling on to these days is if I've got a broodcock that has been phenomenal all of his years and he's up past his years, I will keep him on. I'm sentimental like that. He's a good cock. He's been good to me, so I'm going to be good to him and let him spend his years out. So I will go that. But now, if it's something that I'm not using or beneficial to me, I'm not feeding it. That's just how it is. I'm not feeding.
Speaking of feed and nutrition, not knowing proper nutrition and how to keep healthy fowl.
Yeah, Frank could probably talk better about this than me, but my feeling is I think most people are using gamecock feeds thinking it's a complete ration. Some people are just totally against the pellet. They think there's something wrong with the pellet when I think a good ration has mostly pellet with little grain. I just think you're going to get a better nutritional profile by doing that.
I just don't see how their birds ever make it to anywhere feeding them scratch grains pretty much without a pellet. I don't even know how they get a bird to lay an egg without a pellet. Kudos to them if they're doing it, but no. And the thing about it is, if your nutrition is not right, your selection is not going to be right because you're not getting the full potential of the bird's genetics, the makeup of the bird without a proper nutrition. It all works hand in hand, Kenny. We talk about it. Epigenetics is one of the biggest factors there is breeding chickens. And if one of those three legs, we say it all the time, nutrition, genetics, and your environment, if one of those is off, then you're not going to get the full potential out of that bird ever.
I was judging a show, Nancy, was it Reno? Up in Reno? Mm-hmm. Okay. And I was picking them up. I was checking them out. I asked, are all these birds owned by one person? No, we got all kinds of breeders here. And I couldn't tell you how many birds there were. It was a pretty big show. And I go, because the condition of these birds are terrible. Every one of them. They had poor flesh. They had poor feather. They look lethargic. And so I just started looking at everybody who was watching me. What are you guys feeding your birds? And they all pointed to the feed that was under the tent. It was sponsoring the show.
Oh, gosh.
And after the show, I went over there and looked at them. They had all these jars. I couldn't tell you how many different jars, different formulas of gamecock feeds they were representing.
Close to 20.
Maybe more. Yeah, maybe a little more than that.
Wow.
Okay. And I saw all this corn and all this oats. I was like, oh my God. And then I picked them up. I looked at the label, and I think the average protein for these was 13%. And I go, there's your problem right here. They're feeding them like crap. I started working with that feed company, and I told them what they needed to do, and they got all excited. They had no idea what they were doing was wrong. And this is a mill. So I told them what I thought they needed to do, and it would prove it. And this is what I did. This is what my feed looked like. I gave them an example of what I feed. They analyzed it, took it apart, and they liked it. They liked the nutritional profile that it presented. And they were going to work out a deal with me where they put my name on the bag, and they would give me a percentage of it, but it didn't work out. And I'm glad it didn't. But yeah, all these people up there in Reno were using this particular feed, and the condition of these birds were awful.
They automatically think, let's see this nice bag, usually got a picture of a game bird on it, brightly colored, and they automatically think this is good feed. Not knowing what proportions it is, what's actually in it, doing their research on it. They just take that person's word that it's going to work on their birds good. And then the next thing they know, they've got a bunch of birds that's pretty much eating their own body when it comes down to it because they've got no nutrition whatsoever.
Yeah. One of the things Derek said too was they don't have healthy fowl, or they don't know how to raise healthy fowl. And that's a big one because you're not going to be able to create a strain with birds that are sick or have been sick or carry some kind of a disease. If they're struggling, they're going to pass that weakness off to their offspring. And if you're using medications, you're only hiding the weakness. We're big into getting rid of the medications, breed to the healthy, cull the sick, and in time you improve the resistance to disease. And that's what we teach in the Breeders' Academy. Yeah, I'm a big firm believer, get rid of all those medications. And if you see someone promoting medications, then it's probably somebody you shouldn't be buying birds from because you're just buying their problems, their weaknesses. You're bringing their disease to your yard.
Right here, guys, is my medicine. Right here. My hand. That's my medicine. Pretty much. They get sick, I cull them. That's how I look at it. That's my medicine right there.
Okay, George is saying, change what you learn from your mentor when science proves that it doesn't work that way. Like the old wives' tales they had once heard from their mentors. And then when science comes into play and the facts come into play, you change your thought process on what they had been saying in the past.
Doing that transformation from one to the other, I can tell you, it's tough. It really is. But here's the thing. When you put the two up, one can't explain it, and the other is laid out in front of you and explained to detail to how it works. Which one do you go with? It's common sense when it comes to that. But yeah, I agree. It's tough going from one to the other, though. I will say that. Like Kenny, when Tony come over and said, you don't need these medications and you don't need all these sick birds, get rid of them. That's tough. It really is. It's tough. But I feel so much better now that I don't have to run around checking the weather to see how much antibiotics I need to drench my birds in. It's so much worth it.
We teach the science. We really promote the science on every aspect of breeding. And there's just so many people that are trying to work against us. They try to show that the science not only doesn't work, but it's not needed, that it's overkill. And yeah, that just irks me because I spend most of my time fighting these guys, trying to get people to understand the science and understand why it's important and how we can use it to our benefit. And I just don't know how you're going to create a strain, improve that strain, and maintain that strain without using the science that we teach.
A guy commented on one of my feed pics the other night, a Facebook friend, and he says, it's all the same. They say science is only in meat and egg birds, but basic science is this. What kills one will kill another in chickens, and what's good for one is good for the other. A trait's a trait, regardless. A hybrid vigor, one part a hybrid vigor may be a big meat bird, okay? That's its hybrid vigor, but it's all the same principle. And that's what we try to keep explaining to people that saying, oh, science is only in meat and egg birds. It's not. I know gamefowl is my life. It's always been my life. I don't know life without them. I take that knowledge and I put it over with the knowledge of having game birds, and it works just as well as it does on anything. Science is science, and science can be backed. And I don't know any other field that you could go in as far as wives' tales that will keep you scratching your head. But if you have a problem with science, you can get it figured out. You can't with the old wives' tales and the old superstitions. You're running your tail pretty much on that end.
Well, I'm a big proponent of evolutionary biology, which includes genetics. And once you understand that, then you understand how selective breeding works and why it works the way it does, which helps you understand the different breeding methods and what they do. This has been a harder show than I thought it would be just because I'm trying to be so damn careful. More than I thought it would be, actually. It's like, I don't want to keep repeating myself, and there's some things I don't want to say here. Like, there's a method we're going to be talking here pretty soon for the members. I'm trying to say it without saying it. I'm going to use the old term, but we had changed the term because it actually is more relevant to how the method works. But a lot of my members know it as selecting towards the potential for variation. And we have created a new name for it. And that's one we're going to be teaching here pretty soon. Some of my members know it pretty much, but we're going to go in deep. And if people understood how that method worked, not only could they improve a troubled strain or strain that's starting to have issues for various reasons. Maybe disease came in and hit them hard. Maybe a disaster, tornado came and wiped down all, you were left with a handful of birds. Or you didn't get a great pair or trio when you first started and you want to figure out how to make a family out of that. Or you want to duplicate another breeder's farm. This method shows you how to do it. I didn't make it up or nothing. This is something that's in the old Dead Man books. And most people don't even know it exists. To me, that's a lot science. Of things. And it includes evolutionary biology to make it work. We're talking about gene flow, genetic drift, the founder's effect. By understanding those, you understand how this method works.
A lot of that stuff is, if they only knew how it actually worked, is a thing. And that's the reason I think anybody should educate themselves and at least give science a try. It will turn your world around on how you think of things, basically. It puts a light on everything breeding. It shows you under a microscope basically what you're doing compared to just putting a hen and rooster together and hoping for the best.
For me, it was like a light bulb just flashed on. Prepotency became a big factor. Mitochondrial DNA became a factor. Polygenics, quantitative traits, multi-gene traits became a big factor. These are all things people don't talk about. They don't understand. They don't know how to use them. They don't think it's an issue. They have no idea. All they ever want to talk about is dominant recessive, which they totally get wrong most of the time, or they talk about sex-linked traits. That's it. They think that's it. They think that's genetics.
I've talked to people these days. It's like back when, I'm sure you guys remember this too, is when we went from pencil and paper to computers at work. And everybody's fighting it. I don't want nothing to do with those computers. And once you get used to them, they were heaven sent, okay? And I think it's one of those trends to where it's like that. Once you get somebody to actually sit down and try it, it's totally different. I think a lot of it is they're cautious. They don't think they can learn it, have the smarts to understand it. But anybody that takes time to do this, it's all laid out. I tell Kenny all the time, I said, if it was put together any better, we'd be going to their farm and doing it ourselves if it was laid out any better.
You have another one? Because I have a whole list here I can draw from. If
I'm going to dominate
because
your
we're running
chat
out of
room
time
here.
too, by the way.
Yes, we've got 3 minutes left. And let me get to this. Now, this isn't a mistake, but if this guy is a member, he could ask this on the back end.
He would not ask that question if he was a member. So,
Okay.
All I'm going to tell him is it's not done that way.
Okay. And
Wait.
we'll leave it at that.
you've got the ideal. It's just you don't have it in proper order. There's more that goes with that and a different order. I'll say that.
Yeah.
So that leads into this. A big mistake is not joining the Breeders' Academy.
I appreciate that, Derek. I really do. Yeah.
Another question is, when is the feeding show coming? And
I'm
Barbara
working on
would
it,
like
guys.
to know if you're going to do something about feeding for domestic fowl as well.
We'll have that in there too, because in making this outline, I had to break the two up because nutrition is nutrition. It's just some birds require a little bit more fat in the diet than where gamefowl does, and that. So we'll explain the differences between the two.
All right. Sounds good. We're getting down to the end. So Robbie is saying that I'm not as late as you think, guys. I've been in here. I do want you all to know, as my conversation is occupied by old school roostermen, you need the academy.
The fact he's late, but he made up with it with a good testimonial. He gets to keep his
That's
cap.
what I was going to say.
He gets to keep his hat
He gets
tonight.
to keep his hat, yeah.
Hey, Robbie, maybe one day you'll be lucky enough, buddy.
Red one?
Oh, the red one. The only red one.
Hang in there. You're working for it, but maybe one day.
So here's another testimonial. You guys changed my whole view on looking at American gamefowl. I can see a lot of defects pictured on Facebook that I thought were good roosters before I joined the academy. So thank you, Gamecock Country.
If anything, the academy will wake you up. It'll enlighten you. You will look at things differently. What's our phrase? Not only will we change the way you think about breeding, but we'll change the way you breed your fowl. Something like that. I should know that one by heart. And I always thought that way because I knew we were changing the way people thought and the way they did things, because Frank and I have seen it for years. Best of the best. What they thought was line breeding, adding new blood, refreshing the blood, thinking that they're getting too inbred, so they refresh the blood, or breeding it in and thinking they can breed it back out. This is the kind of thing we were seeing for a long time. And I just knew that I was going to be challenging their old paradigms. We were going to be changing the way they think and getting them to do things different. I knew it was going to be hard, but I just felt like if they understood how it worked, then it would be easier. They wouldn't fight it as much. And it's been working. We got hundreds of members in the Breeders' Academy. So we're accomplishing something. Things are changing.
And the language is changing too. Kenny, just 5 years back, if you'd went on and made a post and said, what do you guys think about type and conformation? They would have crucified you just over that question. Oh, that don't matter.
That's for
Game
pretty fowl.
blah, blah,
That's
blah.
not for game fowl. That's for pretty fowl. That's for show fowl.
Yeah. But and then this is what I say today. You take a breeder that has the power to take a bird and make a pretty bird, okay? If he can change that bird on the outside and make it look the way it's supposed to be, you don't think he can change the inside of that bird as well? That's what you got to look at. If we have enough power to make a bird look a certain way, we can make it act and do certain way.
Most of the improvements we will make is all by selecting according to the phenotype. Now, a lot of the traits that are in the genotype, we're going to change those as they express themselves, but most of those are polygenic traits, and everybody thinks they can improve the genotype by adding new blood, which actually works against polygenic traits. It works against quantitative inheritance. It actually doesn't achieve what they think it's going to achieve. So all the things that we want most are achieved by inbreeding, breeding close, creating a strain. And anytime we bring outside blood, we've destroyed it completely.
Yeah, not to mention the extra defects that we've added, the disease, the sickness, the health problems. They don't see that part of it. They think that when you breed, you get good stuff because it's a good bird that you're putting in there, the blood in. That's all they see.
Okay, I think this is going to be a multi-episode topic. So we might do this for a few shows.
Maybe a part 3.
Maybe. Let's do that. I've got some really good outlines that I'm working on. Most of them are going to be for the members, for the round table, and then the Masters Class video. Frank and I, is it next week? Are we going to do stage 3 next week?
Yep.
Okay.
That's going to be a good one. That's going to be a good one, guys.
So Frank and I are going to do that, and I'll get it on the Breeders' Academy as fast as I can. We've got a couple other ones we're going to be working on. So this was a blessing when I thought about this, because I thought this was a great topic to talk about. Gives me more time to work on the other ones. I'm a big perfectionist. I just want them to be right before I put them out.
All right, I've got one more comment for you, and then we'll say goodbye. I've developed friendships that would blow your minds. When it comes to games, some now ask me for advice. My advice? Join the Academy. We'll leave it with that.
That says something right there. If you're not a member, you can see how loyal the members are to the Academy. And all I can say is I really appreciate it.
Kenny, we was talking about this backstage last member show of how united the members had come. And I told Kenny, I said, to them, it is about becoming a better breeder and the information that's inside the website. But they have got bonds with each other now, lifelong friendships that they've made with each other just by being a member.
I got to say this.
That's a great part.
Yeah, and I got to say this before we get off, is I learned how to do membership sites from someone else. Okay, and his biggest thing was, I don't remember the exact phrase, but yes, the membership is important, but the community was more important. It's all about the community. And I kept telling Nancy, and I might even told Frank, that I don't really think my site's going to be good for the community. It's not going to be a community type site. They're just going to go in there. They're going to learn what they need to learn and get out. And I was so wrong, because once I created Breeders' Academy groups page, they get in there. I've got gamefowl breeders talking to domestic chicken breeders. I got domestic chicken breeders talking to gamefowl breeders. I've got other types of animals talking with chicken people and vice versa. And they're all like friends with each other, helping each other, giving them advice. Someone would ask a question, they answer it. And I just step back. I just let it happen. It's not until they ask me directly that I may jump in there. For the most part, the members know how to get a hold of me inside the membership. And so I just let the members have their time. And it's one of the best things I ever did was create that groups page. Absolutely.
They mention us time to time. They'll put their name in a topic, wanting us to give their 2 cents worth. But Kenny's right. The majority of the time, they're working it out between themselves.
We said it not too long ago, maybe a show or two ago, that if we got a lot of these members on here and we step back and just have how many? I think you can do up to 6 or 8 people and have them all on here chatting about breeding. They wouldn't need us. They'd do a fine job without us.
I have no doubt they would. We could just sit back, Kenny, and just drink a cup of coffee and just enjoy the show.
Yeah. I've been thinking about it. I don't know how many will actually do it, but I just think it would be a really good idea.
It would be.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
That may be
someday.
something we'd have to start out in the members and just doing the members.
Oh, yeah. No, that's where it'd have to be. Yeah, it would be something on the website.
And George wanted to remind you not to forget this project.
Yeah, the T-Rex.
I thought Robbie was working on that.
Hey, I can't wait to see those results, though, guys. With the dinosaur chicken, I cannot wait to see the finishing process. I have been so excited about that.
It's funny. I haven't heard anything new lately, so I'm not sure.
I haven't either.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, that's more proof right there to what me and Kenny and Nancy always say, that the chickens are plastic and we can make them whatever we want to make them and breed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to end this show. I want to encourage you guys to join the Breeders' Academy. At least join the Breeders Bulletin, which is our newsletter, go to www.breedersacademy.com. Join the newsletter. You're going to get a lot of good information, a lot of extras. And for my members, meet me in the back end. We'll see you in a few minutes. See you guys later.
See you there, guys.
Bye.
Okay, thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you again for joining us on the Bred to Perfection podcast show. This show was brought to you by the Breeders Academy, where by becoming a member, you can increase your knowledge of breeding, advance your skills as a breeder, and take you and your fowl to the next level.
We can also show you how to create a strain from hybrid crosses or mongrel flocks, and help you to create, maintain, and improve your present strains. We urge you to check it out. You have nothing to lose, and you can cancel anytime.
To join us at the Breeders Academy membership website, go to www.breedersacademy.com.
Best of all, I'll be there to help you every step of the way.
While you're checking out the Breeders Academy, make sure to sign up for our newsletter, the Breeders Bulletin. We provide a lot of free bonus materials and some great information that will take you and your fowl to the next level. Well, that's it for now.
We hope you join us next time for another episode of Bred to Perfection. We'll see you later.
Bye.